Dogamlotem nimeni online. Ceea ce nu este bun.
Da, deloc. O să verifici ăla, poate...
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TOEFL Speaking online class for 26 plus. The class will begin about 5 minutes after the starting time. We're welcoming everybody who joins us today. And I want to take this moment to deeply apologize for the last session where we were not prepared for some technical hurdles and could not carry out that session at that time. I took the effort to prepare some material for you, and we've tested this extensively to make sure nothing happens today. So I'm hoping you all can hear and see me just fine. In fact, if you can hear me, just take a moment to write in the chat box and introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from. Tell us if you've taken the TOEFL before, and just say hi to everybody when you get online. So once again, welcome, and I hope you will really enjoy the class today. I've had my backup tell me that the audio might be a bit interrupted, and in that case, the presentation will still be fine, as I've prepared some material in advance for you, and that material is not being streamed from my audio source. So that should carry out without any problems. So again, take the moment to say hi and just tell us where you're from. Tell us who you are. I see there are about 12 people online so far, and that's a decent number. We normally expect about 50 to 100 people for these classes, but this class has been problematic from the start. So today I will be talking about the 5 essential TOEFL skills that you must know about and understand before you can get 26 or higher score on TOEFL speaking. And these 5 skills are the essentials that we teach during our one-on-one classes and group lessons. I see somebody has a speaking request, Zamir. Let me see if I can enable you to contribute during this class. Let's see. I sent you an invite as speaker. So if you can chime in, just click the speaking button and you should be able to speak. I must admit, we've not used the speaker functionality. It really adds a cognitive load to the class. And for the biggest part, whenever we do these sessions, we take our questions in the chat box. If you check out the chat box, you have a little bubble button that you can click to switch between chat and QA. And if you have questions, it would be best to introduce them as QAs, as I will be better able to check on them and answer them during or after the class. So can everybody hear me? Can you see me? Please take a moment to say hi and write during the chat, inside the chat box. So I posted a little bit of a message in the chat box just so you can see how it will show if you chime in. It's not necessary. You can just view the class. There are about 15 people live so far. We're going to wait a little bit longer, 3 or 4 more minutes, just to make sure that everybody who can join today has logged on. And once again, I want to apologize for the problems in the last class, which we were not able to carry out. I've prepared some material for you, and it's been done to compensate for other troubles that we've experienced in the past when hosting these kinds of classes. Usually there are audio issues or video issues, and to compensate for those, I have pre-recorded the class material to make sure that delivery is good and that the supportive content in form of slides is also good and that the quality of audio is good. So once we start the class, I will be enabling that material that I pre-recorded, and I will be taking questions in chat if you have anything you want to know. So, the hellos are rolling in. Hi, Malek from Turkey, Hilal, Zamir, Ginny, Julius from the Philippines. Hi, Marcia. Hi, Stephanie from Malaysia. Mohammed Junaid from India. And Jobel. Hi, Jobel. So I'm happy to see you all today. I don't know how many of you were maybe online on Sunday when we try to host the class then. I will try to hold another session for the rest of the students, maybe for you if you can make it. So if you're checking this out during the replay that will be made available, have my deepest apologies, and I hope you will be able to enjoy the class just the same. We will be making this material available after the class ends. Yes, Mohammed. Hi, Sal. And I really hope that this will help you get the score you need on TOEFL speaking. So I'm just gonna hold this intro. From Iran. My bad, Amir. I'm just gonna hold this intro for another 2 minutes, and then I'm going to start the class. And once again, the class material is pre-recorded. Right now we're live, but the class material is pre-recorded just to make sure that the quality is as good as we can make it, and that there are no interruptions or disruptions, and so that I can better answer you. If you have questions during the material, feel free to ask them in the chat box. While the material is being loaded, the chat box will be usable, but you will not be able to see what other participants are writing, partly because it distracts a lot from the material, but I will be able to see and answer everything that you ask. So we are now, let's see, there's about 22 people online, and this is great. This is good. Hello, everybody. And before I start the material, I just like to get a little bit of a feel for your personal situation. I would like to know if you have taken the TOEFL so far. I'm actually going to ask, like, if you have taken the TOEFL so far, there's a poll that I'd like you all to fill in, and it will help me get a feel for your situation and how we can better present content for you in the future, because there are many students who start preparing wisely for the TOEFL before they actually take an exam, but there are many students who will have taken the TOEFL already, maybe once, maybe twice. Some numbers are coming in. So we have over a half of you, almost two-thirds of you have not taken the TOEFL before. And that is really good for you because as you will see at the end results of this poll, there are a lot of you. Well, there's only 20-something people online right now. So there's about 3 of you who have taken the TOEFL more than 10 times, which is very painful. That is very painful because the TOEFL is very expensive and it takes a lot of time to prepare. And part of the reason why we have created the school, why our founder, Paul Austin, has created the school, was because he worked with a lot of TOEFL students, and many of them were struggling on the TOEFL. And I see another about two, three of you have taken the TOEFL between 4 and 6 times. Not as bad as 10 plus, but let's hope you never get there. And 1 to 3 times are the usual attempts for the ones who have taken the TOEFL so far. So we have some decent percentages. Funnily enough, nobody took the TOEFL between 7 and 9 times, so that's good. Before I start, I would like to mention a few extra details. So for people who have not taken the TOEFL, many people don't really understand what the challenges are. Like Zamir says, he has taken the test once, he got 18 on speaking, and that's pretty common. Most students tend to get 22, 23. The perfect example, look, Nader had just, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Nader, might be Nadir. He always gets 23 or 24 on speaking, and he needs to get 26. And something I've covered in the material is that there is no 25 on speaking. So we have a lot of students who get 23, they get 24, especially guys, if you've not taken the TOEFL before, it's useful to be aware of this. The jump between 23 and 23, 24, and 26 is extremely significant. The rubric is far harsher, and the number of mistakes that you can make is very limited. So even though it seems like it's a close score, it's really not. Lots of people struggle specifically on TOEFL speaking. All right. There are a few things I'm also going to mention during the presentation about how we as a school can help you get 26. Other than the free materials that we make available, we make a lot of materials available on our site in case you have not seen the website, because some of you have enrolled to this class maybe through Facebook advertising. We've promoted this class on Facebook a little bit, so you might have seen the class from there. Just make sure you go to our website, which is TOEFLspeakingteacher.com, and look for the free resources button. Now, we are not going to be delaying this any longer, and I'm going to enable the class presentation that I created for you guys, and it's about to start right now. So enjoy your class, and I'm going to be online to answer any questions that you have, and we're also going to be talking about it a bit at the end of class, all right? Have fun.
A little bit of an introduction on what the TOEFL Speaking Teacher online school is. This school was founded by Paul Austin, who served as head tutor and instructor, and also curriculum developer. And most of the material you are enjoying and you're using to study has been developed by Paul. And a little bit a while ago, Paul hired a few teachers. You may have seen some of them on the site. We have Jamie Tansman, we have Kevin Dunn, Vivel Yearwood, Anna Stearns, Anastasia Morgina, and Paul has trained these teachers in the specific methods and the curriculum required to use the TOEFL Speaking 26 Plus method and deliver excellent results. We have tens upon tens of testimonials and hundreds of students who have worked with us and achieved excellent results on TOEFL Speaking. I want to welcome all of you to the free TOEFL Speaking 26 Plus class. My name is Vlad. I am the head of business development for TOEFL Speaking Teacher, which is an online language school focusing on helping students earn 26 plus on TOEFL Speaking. Our teachers also provide support and tutoring for the other TOEFL sections. So if you need help on reading, listening, writing, or general English fluency, you can work with our teachers one-on-one or as part of group classes and increase your English skills. We help students both with the process of improving your spoken English so you can get a high score, but more importantly, we help students with overcoming anxiety issues confidence issues so you can perform very well in the TOEFL speaking section. Probably the biggest challenge the students face in the TOEFL speaking section is that they get nervous and anxious, and that's a very big part of what our teachers will work on with you, because it is important to speak English well, but it is just as important to be able to speak English with confidence and fluency. I will switch back and forth between facing you directly or showing you some slides that will help support the material I will be teaching you. I am going to give you an overview of the mindset that is important to have when you're approaching the TOEFL speaking section, and then, more importantly, the specifics of, if you're taking the TOEFL speaking section, what do you need to pay attention to so that you can get a high score. Okay? So I have already mentioned this. We will be taking short breaks in between different points of the class, and I will talk to you a little bit about options for tutoring in case you are approaching a close TOEFL deadline, or if you feel or believe you need extra support from a qualified tutor, if you need one-on-one tutoring, or if you just want to make sure that you are part of a well-developed curriculum to help teach you everything you need to know about TOEFL speaking. Before we officially start the class, I'm going to ask you guys a few questions. First of all, why are you taking the TOEFL test? Is it for employment, like if you're a pharmacist or teacher, doctor or dentist? Is it for a PhD or master's program? Are you taking TOEFL for a MBA or LLM, or maybe an undergraduate degree? Why are you guys taking the TOEFL test? The reason why we ask why you're taking TOEFL is because it is important to understand basically what challenges and issues you are going to face. Somebody who is taking the TOEFL for their PhD or master's program might need to get 26, or it might be nice to get 26, but it may not be absolutely required in order to apply to whatever program you need. Whereas somebody who is taking the TOEFL in order to become a teacher or a doctor or a dentist will need to get 26 on TOEFL speaking, or they will not be able to get the promotion they need, or they may not be able to get the visa or extend their visa. In this class, we are going to focus on two main things. First, we will focus on mindset. And it is important to understand, in terms of mindset, it is important to notice how much money you have invested so far in obtaining your TOEFL, and it is also important to consider how much time you have spent so far in preparing for the TOEFL. The second thing we'll focus on are the 5 skills you need to master to get 26 plus on TOEFL speaking. For many of you who are here right now, your number one goal is to earn a high TOEFL speaking score. For most of you, that's 26. For some of you, it might be 27 or even 28. Occasionally, we have had students needing 30 on TOEFL speaking. It's important to keep in mind that this is very difficult to do. We've seen a lot of students struggle with the process of getting 26 or higher on TOEFL speaking. Many students will take the test again or again or again, and they might get 22, 23, or maybe 24. But there are a lot of students who struggle to get from 24 to 26. And the reason for that is that there is no 25 on TOEFL speaking. You either get 24 or you get 26. Another important reason is because most students try to prepare by themselves. Even though many students do not know what's required to get 26 on TOEFL speaking, even though many students do not know what they need to do exactly, they still try to prepare on their own. And when they prepare on their own, it takes them months or probably years to improve their spoken English well enough to get a high score on TOEFL speaking. This is a problem because when it takes someone months or years to get a high score, they're doing two things. One, they're wasting a lot of time. Our teachers have worked with a lot of pharmacists, especially from the Middle East or India, and there will be some pharmacists who will take 2 or 3 years to get their required score. Those are years that they could have been working as pharmacists if they had decided to commit to premium resources and getting professional help. The second thing is, it's a big waste of money. Every time you take the TOEFL, you will pay between 190 up to maybe about 240 US dollars. I'd like to get a sense of the people in the classroom. How many times have you taken the TOEFL test? So please fill in the poll that will be showing up right now. How many times have you taken the TOEFL test so far? For some of you, it's 0. For some, it's 1 to 3. For some, it's 4 to 6. Students who we have had in the past in these classes have sometimes spent in excess of $2,000 just on test fees. Before you take the TOEFL again, you want to make sure you are ready and prepared to get your goal score. And that's what this class is about. And we're going to go into specifics of what you need to know to get 26+. It is important from a mindset perspective to understand that time and money are important to you, and that we as a school and other premium resources can help you minimize the amount of time you have to spend and the amount of money you have to spend to get 26+ on speaking. There are probably 2 reasons, if you have taken the TOEFL test, why you have not already earned your goal score. One might be because you're not studying the right materials or resources. You have not been practicing enough, or you don't quite know what the right things you should be studying are so that you can get 26+ on TOEFL speaking. The second reason is because a lot of students do not want to do the hard work. Our team has worked with a lot of students, and one of the biggest obstacles in their way is that they try to get a shortcut that will prevent them from working. If you want to get 26+ on TOEFL speaking, you must be willing to work hard. Getting 26+ on TOEFL speaking is not easy. I'll say that again, guys. Getting 26+ on TOEFL speaking is not easy. I am going to show you an example, and that's the case study of Hiran from India. Hiran has taken the TOEFL 7 times and has spent about $1,300 just on TOEFL test fees. Hiran kept earning 23 or 24 on TOEFL speaking, so he registered for private lessons with our school. Hiran studied for 3 months with us, he sat for the TOEFL again, and he earned 27. Hiran's story is pretty common among pharmacists. It isn't something that is just a random occurrence, it happens pretty often. But Hiran knew that he did not study the right material. That's why he kept getting 23 or 24 on TOEFL speaking. He also realized he was spending a lot of money. Once again, he spent about $1,300 on just test fees. So he decided to invest his hard-earned money on premium material, in this case, private lessons. He made a commitment to study the right materials, and he made the decision to do the hard work and invest his hard-earned money in what he needed to do. This is one last question that I want you to think about before we get into the specifics of how to get 26+ on TOEFL speaking. You don't have to answer this question out loud, but just think about it in your head, especially if you're a pharmacist, teacher, physical therapist, nurse, or dentist. How much money are you missing out if you don't earn 26+ on TOEFL speaking? Keep in mind, the average salary of a pharmacy tech is $30,000 per year. The average salary of a pharmacist is $108,000 per year. So every month that a pharmacy tech is not getting 26+ on TOEFL speaking, he will be missing out about $6,500 per month. Let's look back at Hiran. Not only did he spend $1,300 on test fees, but he sat for the TOEFL test 7 times over the span of 1 year. So because it took him so long to get the required score on TOEFL speaking, Hiran lost the opportunity to make an extra $80,000. If he had immediately invested in private lessons and made the commitment to study the right resources and the decision to do the hard work, he would have saved a year in preparations and he would have made an extra of $80,000. It's important to keep in mind that when you're considering whether or not to invest in premium services like lessons or study materials, you must also keep track of the time that will save you. So that's the main part about the mindset you need to have when you're preparing for TOEFL speaking. What we focus on at TOEFL Speaking Teacher is making sure you get a score of 26 or higher on TOEFL speaking. That's it. And we have helped hundreds of students reach their goal score by using our curriculum. But many of those students had to invest in either group lessons or private lessons. You do not need to purchase anything in this class. But if you have a budget and if you can afford it, it is extremely helpful to invest in professional services for TOEFL speaking. Let's go ahead and get into the 5 skills that you must pay attention to in order to get 26 plus on TOEFL speaking. It's important to keep in mind that the 5 skills you need to master in order to get 26 or higher on TOEFL speaking will build on each other. So you must master some skills before you can move on to the other ones. The 5 skills are fluency, TOEFL speaking tactics, words and phrases, accent and intonation, and your pace of speech. Now the reason I put these in a pyramid is because you must master the ones at the bottom first. Before you go into words and phrases, you must have adequate English fluency. Before your fluency is completely good, the pyramid will crumble. You will fail and become overwhelmed. You must first master the basics of the TOEFL speaking section if you want to do any more advanced things. So let's talk about each one of these. Let's start with fluency. This is always the thing that students must first start with. Fluency is the ability to minimize the interruptions in your response. If you have never recorded your response, you should begin doing that immediately. You should record your own response at home and use that to evaluate your speaking ability. Next time you do that, record your response and ask, how many interruptions did I have? The most common interruption is ums or ahs. For an example, my favorite city in the world is New York, and that's because New York has a lot of fun things to do. The most fun thing to do in New York is to go to all the restaurants. My favorite restaurant in New York City is blah 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 blah. If you record your responses and you listen to them, you'll notice you have a lot of interruption. The important thing to do is minimize those. For example, if I had to pick a favorite city, my favorite city would be New York. And that's for a couple of reasons. The first reason is because New York is a lot of fun. When I go to New York, I'd love to go to all of these restaurants, blah blah blah. Notice that there are no real interruptions and the delivery is very fluent. Let's listen to an example response so you can have an even better sense of what this might be like.
As far as I am concerned, I think leadership is the quality that would make someone a valuable team member, and that for a variety of reasons. Most importantly, that person will take up responsibility very well. Like I remember that I have a good leadership quality, and whenever any particular task is assigned to me, I take full responsibility and try to complete it very well. And the second thing is that a good leader can inspire other team member. To give you an example, my manager is a good leader, and whenever I work with her, I really get inspired and to give my best. So that's why I think that leadership is a good quality to have.
So we heard that response and it was pretty good. The audio quality wasn't great, but there were very few interruptions. So that's what we need in a fluent response. Minimize the number of interruptions. The second thing you need is to pay attention to your TOEFL speaking tactics. These are things like timing, content, organization, and note-taking. The timing means you need to pay attention to the time limit you have for the various TOEFL speaking questions. For question types 1 and 2, that is 45 seconds. Question types 3 through 6 have a limit of 60 seconds. So that means your response must be up to 58, 59, or 60 seconds. In terms of content, that means that for question types 1 and 2, you should use a personal story or example. For question types 3 and 4, you should make sure that you talk about both the reading and the lecture. And for question type 5, you talk about the problem and the 2 solutions you would choose and why. And for question type 6, that means you discuss the important parts of the lecture. Content overlaps with organization. Your response needs to be well organized. You need an introduction, you need a first point, a second point, and a conclusion. That's for question types 1 and 2. For question type 3, you need to focus about 15 seconds on the reading passage and about 45 seconds on the dialogue. Question type 4 is about the same, 15 seconds on the reading, 45 seconds on the lecture. For question type 5, you need to spend about 10 seconds on the problem, 20 to 25 seconds on the 2 solutions, and about 20 to 25 seconds on which solution you would choose and why. The last thing that is important to pay attention to is note-taking. You need to make sure that your notes are organized and that it's easy to go from one point to the next. Do not write prepositions and do not write articles. The, a, prepositions are like on, under, about. Focus only on writing nouns and verbs, maybe some adjectives. Also, make sure that you use abbreviations and symbols. If you're saying up, just draw an up arrow. If you're saying down, just draw a down arrow. So mastering those two, fluency and TOEFL speaking tactics, is really important. Let's just review. Fluency, you need to minimize interruptions. 2 or 3 at the very most. With TOEFL speaking tactics, you need to pay attention to timing, content, and organization. I'm going to repeat what I said about organization, so make sure to write this down if you need to. For question types 1 and 2, you need an intro and usually 2 examples. For question type 3, you spend 15 seconds on the reading section, 45 seconds on the dialogue. Then for question type 4, 15 seconds on the reading, 45 seconds on the lecture. For question type 5, 10 seconds on the problem, 20 to 25 seconds on the 2 solutions, and 20 to 25 seconds on which solution you would choose and why. But make sure you stay really close to the 60-second time limit. For question type 6, you need to talk about the 2 or 3 main points in the lecture and do that under 60 seconds. Mastering those 2 points is the foundation of having good TOEFL speaking section. Once you feel like you mastered those, that's when you go up to words and phrases. Now, if you have any questions about the material I just told you on English fluency, you should make sure to put those in the chat box now. Do you have any questions so far? I see a few questions, which is great. Save them for the end. We will do a Q&A at the end. So let's go back to some slides now. So the second important skill to master for TOEFL speaking is the use of words and phrases. I want you to speak English. That's what Uncle Sam says. What does that mean? What we notice when we work with a lot of students for the TOEFL speaking section is that they would try to memorize formulas and templates for TOEFL speaking. One important thing to keep in mind about that is the TOEFL examiners do not want you to sound like a robot. So, again, the TOEFL examiners do not want you to sound like a robot. Language is not robotic. Think about your own native language. Whether that's Spanish or Hindu, Arabic, French or German, Chinese, Japanese, when you speak your first language, do you memorize bits and parts of sentences? Do you try to create a response out of templates? No, you don't. When you speak your language, it's natural, it's fluent. Your words and phrases just come to you because you're familiar with that language. The same thing occurs in English. You need to speak informal, natural English. Memorizing templates is not a good idea because if you memorize templates for your TOEFL speaking responses, you will sound like a robot because templates influence your intonation. Intonation is the rhythm of the language. Think about it like in music. Memorizing templates affects your intonation. Because it affects your intonation, you will get marked down if you use templates and become too formulaic. You don't want to sound academic. You want to sound informal. You want to sound conversational. So whenever you are giving your responses, imagine talking to a friend over coffee. Imagine you're having a conversation with that friend. You're sitting in front of your computer screen, giving your responses, and imagine that's a friend that you're speaking to. Now we're going to talk about a couple of things in relation to intonation. One, the first important thing for words and phrases is if you want to speak more informal, conversational English, listen to more podcasts, watch TV shows, watch movies. More importantly, practice speaking more English. Find a partner you can speak with online. Find a native speaker who you can either take lessons from or talk to. Talk English out loud to yourself. This is one of the biggest things we have our students do. You know, when you're walking around your house, maybe you're preparing your food or you're cleaning or you're getting ready in the morning. When that's happening, there are these thoughts that are going through your head. Okay, I need to open the refrigerator, I need to take the eggs out, now I need to get the milk, now I need to check on this or that. When you're doing that, say those things out loud in English. Force yourself to practice saying things out loud in English by yourself. The more you speak English out loud to yourself, the more comfortable you will become with generally speaking English. That's the easiest way to practice a lot. You don't need a partner, you don't need a teacher, you can just do that by yourself. And you're doing that in a natural environment. You are thinking of scenarios and situations that are natural. The second thing then is listen. Listen, 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 listen. You need to practice speaking. You also need to listen to a lot of informal English. Like we mentioned, podcasts, TV shows, movies, news, talks. If you have 2 hours to practice English every day, you should be listening 1.5 hours, and you should practice speaking for about 30 minutes. When you practice speaking, here are some of the words and phrases that you want to be using in the TOEFL speaking section. 1. You want to use adverbs. Actually, basically, definitely, totally, completely. I definitely think that New York City is the best city in the world, and that's probably because they have some of the best food. Last time I was in New York, I went completely crazy with all the food that I ate, blah 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 blah. We use those adverbs to help us sound conversational, to help us sound informal. The second thing, idioms. If you can use like 2 or 3 idioms in your TOEFL speaking responses, that shows the evaluators that you're comfortable speaking English. It shows the evaluators that you deserve 26 plus on TOEFL speaking because you can use idiomatic English. So try to use a couple of idioms in English. Let's review words and phrases, okay? Do not use templates or formulas. Language is natural. Communication is natural. Let that come out in your TOEFL speaking responses. To improve your spoken English, you can listen to podcasts, TV shows, movies, and you need to practice speaking. You can practice speaking to yourself, you can practice speaking to a partner online who is also a non-native speaker, or you can practice speaking to a private teacher. Finally, use adverbs and idioms in your TOEFL speaking responses. Basically, definitely, totally, completely, and use idioms as well. Once you feel really comfortable with words and phrases, that's when you can move to intonation and accent. So let's move on to essential skill number 3, intonation and accent. Intonation and accent is pretty easy, it's a quick fix. Pronunciation is difficult and it takes time. What we noticed with students is that you don't really need to worry about pronunciation. There are plenty of students who have poor pronunciation but still manage to get 26 on TOEFL speaking. What matters most instead is intonation. what matters most is intonation. I'm going to give you an example of intonation right now. First, I'm going to give a response with no intonation at all. So no intonation at all. So I'm going to give a passage without any intonation, and then I will give it with intonation so that you can hear the difference. Probably the most important book that I've read was the Harry Potter series, and the first reason for that is because the Harry Potter series is really engaging and quite interesting. You know, I read it maybe 7 or 8 years ago, but it really helped and inspired me to get into reading, and that's why the first reason why I like the Harry Potter book. The second reason why I really like the Harry Potter book is because it's really interesting. It's about this guy, obviously Harry Potter, who goes to the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry and does a lot of really interesting things. That's reading it without any intonation. And if you use templates in the TOEFL speaking section, you will sound pretty close to that. You will sound pretty close. You will sound like a robot, which is why you should not use templates. You need to sound natural. How would that response sound if you had intonation, if you had a rhythm in your language? Probably the most important book that I have read was the Harry Potter series. And the first reason for that is because the Harry Potter series is really engaging and it's quite interesting. You know, I read it maybe 7 or 8 years ago, but it really helped and inspired me to get into reading and to be interested in reading. And that's the first reason why I really like the Harry Potter series. The second reason why I really like the Harry Potter books is because the story is really quite interesting. It's about this guy, obviously Harry Potter, who goes to the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and just these characters and the stories they taught are really interesting. So that's why I like Harry Potter. That's why it's a really important book for me. You'll notice there that I used intonation. I go up, I go down, especially at the end of sentences. Sometimes I speak a little bit quicker and maybe I get excited about something, and sometimes I take pauses, I take breaks to emphasize a point or to stop a sentence from going on too long. Mastering English, especially American English and intonation, will help you incredibly. It will be incredibly helpful for you in order to get 26 plus on TOEFL speaking. Now the best, the easiest and the quickest way to improve your intonation is mimicry. You should be mimicking native speakers. Again, it's the music of the language. Listening to a podcast, listening to a sentence, repeat that sentence out loud and try to sound exactly the same. If the native speaker goes up, you go up. If the native speaker goes down, you go down. If the native speaker talks a little bit quicker and gets excited, you talk a little bit quicker and get excited. If the native speaker takes a break or a pause, you take a break or a pause. If you do this enough and you continue to mimic native speakers from podcasts, TV shows, or movies, you will get closer and closer to sounding like a native speaker. So that's intonation. So, if you do this enough, if you continue to mimic native speakers through podcasts, TV shows, movies, newscasts, and other kinds of talks, you will get closer and closer to sounding like a native speaker. So that's intonation. Now the last key is pace of speech. Let's talk about the last most important essential skill to mastering TOEFL speaking. The last skill is the pace of speech. You want to be able to stay in between 100 and 105 words in your response for question 1's types and 2. For question types 3 through 6, you should be able to say between 125 and 135 words. If you can speak at that pace, it will give you a much better chance of getting 26. You don't 100% need to get this mark to get 26. We have had students who have been under this pace who managed to get 26. But if you can speak quickly, If you can speak fast in English, you're capable of showing that you are able to handle a natural, a natural paced conversation in English. Finally, the last and most important part before we get into questions. Confidence. Your confidence affects everything. A confident mindset is critical to getting 26 plus on TOEFL speaking. Confidence affects everything. If you don't believe that you can get 26, you won't. If you think, I'm not smart enough, my English isn't good, I get nervous, I get anxious, I'm not good enough for this, then you won't get 26. If you are confident enough, if you believe it, if you repeat that message to yourself again and again and again, you will get better and better and better at TOEFL speaking. You need to believe in yourself. You need to believe that you have the intelligence and the capability to work hard, to use the right resources and materials, and to get 26 or higher on TOEFL speaking. But like I said earlier, this is not easy. Getting 26 on TOEFL speaking is not easy. It requires dedication, it requires commitment, it requires perseverance. You need to take it one day at a time. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and so on. If every day you get a little bit better, if you improve your fluency just a little bit, if you improve your ability to listen a little bit, if you improve your use of words and phrases, if you commit to daily improvement, you will get the score you want as long as you follow the right resources. You can study for years and years and you can be the smartest person in the world. But if you study the wrong resources, or if you study resources that just aren't a good fit for TOEFL speaking, then you will struggle in your preparation. This is why our founder, Paul Austin, created the TOEFL Speaking Teacher Language School. There were so many students who would take the TOEFL 10 times, 15 times, 20 times, and they would get 23, 24 on TOEFL speaking. We have managed to solve that problem. We have finally fixed that problem. We have provided resources that will help you get 26, but you must commit to being motivated and to believing in yourself. You must have the confidence that you will achieve the score you need. Confidence is everything. It underlies everything. It is the container in which all your studying happens. If you believe in yourself, if you commit to yourself, you will get 26 plus on TOEFL speaking. Now, let's do a brief review to understand where we are. Many of you have not taken the TOEFL yet, which is good. About another half of you have taken the TOEFL before, and you are here because you did not get the score you need. Maybe you got 22, maybe you got 23 or 24 on TOEFL speaking, and that's where you're at. You have learned a lot of important things in this class. However, you haven't gotten 26 yet. So now you have 3 choices, and you can pick any one of these. Choice number 1 is to continue to prepare by yourself with free resources. This will take a lot of time and it will likely be quite frustrating. However, I understand that you may live in certain countries where the income is quite low and you are not able to afford premium resources and the ability to prepare with a tutor. You can continue to prepare using free resources. You can use the video content we have available on YouTube or the material that we have published on our website to continue to prepare for TOEFL speaking. Option number 2. You have the choice to prepare with another company or tutor with what you learned in today's class. There are websites that have tutors that are cheaper, and you may be able to work with native speakers for about $10 an hour. However, it's important to keep in mind that these tutors do not have the specific expertise that is required in order to prepare for TOEFL speaking. That's our specialty, and that brings up the third choice. Your third choice, you can use our premium resources to accelerate your path to TOEFL speaking 26. We've helped hundreds of students get 26, 27 or higher on TOEFL speaking, and we want to help you as well. So, another question that I have for you that, again, you do not need to answer it out loud. This is for your own benefit. You should think, if you had the ability to invest and in 3 months be completely done with TOEFL, in 3 months you would have received the score you need and you're done with TOEFL, how much of a budget can you prepare in order to invest in premium resources and tutoring? What's your budget for preparing on TOEFL speaking? Consider that you will then be able to finally move on. You will be able to become a pharmacist, a registered teacher, a registered nurse, a physical therapist. How much money will you pay if you knew that in 3 months you could be done? As I mentioned at the beginning of class, there are products that we make available for our students. The first product that we can offer is TOEFL Speaking 26 Plus group classes. Group classes are 8 classes held over the course of 1 month with one of our TOEFL speaking teachers. The group class package includes 2 evaluations of your speaking response, one that you should use before and another that you should use after, so that you know where you stand at the beginning and where you stand after taking these classes. These response analysis will also help the teacher provide you with personalized advice during your classes. One of our group class teachers is Jamie Tansman, who is a native English speaker and is a former principal at a teaching institute. She's a phenomenal teacher. She will teach you 2 classes per week with 6 to 8 other students for those group classes. The focus of these classes is to help you get 26 plus on TOEFL speaking. The second thing is, if that's too much of a commitment for you right away, we have a 30-minute TOEFL speaking evaluation where you can meet with Jamie in a one-on-one session, and she will evaluate your current speaking response and tell you this is where you're at and this is where you need to go to get 26 plus on TOEFL speaking. These are your 2 options right now: group classes or a TOEFL speaking evaluation. I also want to mention the TOEFL speaking group classes also include complete access to our TOEFL speaking self-study course for TOEFL speaking. This is an online course that is also being used by students of our private lesson packages and is an excellent study tool that will contain all the information you need to get 26 plus.
Okay, so hello again, everybody. That was the presentation that I created for you just to make sure that the class material was not ever interrupted by problems in connectivity or audio issues, as has happened in the past. So, like I mentioned, we have some premium services that I really hope you guys check out. I really think they will help you to reach the score you need, especially if you are taking the TOEFL anytime soon. And I will take just another moment to mention specifically when and how they're useful. The group classes are useful for students who have the TOEFL date more than a month away. So because the group classes take a month, students who are in a hurry and who have their deadline maybe in a couple of weeks or 3 weeks or so, or maybe this week, will probably not take the full benefit of these classes. Whereas the speaking evaluation, which I have not published the offer for and which is $37, is a 30-minute one-on-one meeting with one of our best teachers. And she talks with you. You will be presenting your responses to 3 question types. And she will, during this class, tell you exactly what you're doing wrong And for the score you need, because you may need a smaller score, you may need 23, you may need 24, or you may need 30. And you need to know specifically for that score the exact skills that you are weak at, the exact things you need to improve on. And I'm going to be bringing that up in place of the group class offer. And I'd like to talk with you guys a little bit about both of these. But before we do, there were some questions during the presentation, and I want to touch base on those. In fact, let me see, Ginny asked me for examples on idioms. I did not give any proper examples of idioms during the presentation, but it's very important to have a good understanding of idioms. You certainly have idioms in your language. If you don't know what idioms are, there are some people who don't know. I didn't know for a long, long time. But idioms are expressions. They are phrases that don't literally mean what they say. For example, in English, we have the very popular idiom, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And what that idiom actually means is that it is better to show than to tell. It's better to give an example than it is to talk about things. Another popular idiom in English is to add insult to injury, which is to take a bad situation and to make it even worse, right? So you have somebody who tripped you over and then he's insulting you. That's literally adding insult to injury. He's making a bad situation worse. Another common idiom is that of a perfect storm, right? You have the worst possible situation. So I can give you more idiomatic examples if you want. Just make sure you say so in the chat. I'd also like to know if you have any extra questions. And guys, I really want to point this out. It will be very, 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 very helpful for you if you choose to sign up for at least a speaking evaluation. In fact, somewhere between 20 to 30% of our students, varies month to month, will get 26 just by the feedback that they receive from the speaking evaluation. We've had more than expected success stories coming to us and having massive improvement, especially if you're at 23 or 24. You might be very close to the skills that you have to master to get 26. And typically the quickest fixes have to do with your understanding of the exact time limits, with your understanding of how you should be taking notes, with your understanding of how you should be delivering your content during that time limit, right? Many students don't really appreciate what the time limits on the questions mean. They think, well, if the time limit's 45 seconds and I take 50 seconds, that's not so bad, right? But what they don't know is that once the timer gets started, it stops at the precise second. So every second you deliver past that time limit does not count into your response, and your response is crippled. And that's been a really, really popular, well, unpopular, but very common weakness among many of our students. And I see we've had a few students sign up for an evaluation, and I really hope we will be seeing you quite soon for those. I've noticed that we have a lot of pharmacists registered for today's class. In fact, let me just give a quick look over to the reason. So 33% of you are taking this for employment, which is a really big number. The rest of you are either taking it for MBA, LLM, PhD or master's, or undergraduate. For those of you who don't have a pressing TOEFL deadline, I really recommend you check out those group lessons. They will be held in a format of up to 8 students, and they will teach you everything you need to know to get 26 on TOEFL speaking. And they include access to our TOEFL speaking course. And we've made them as cheap as we can. with as many packages as we can to make them worth it. I see Ginny really did not get the idea of idiom. Some simple examples. So I've gave you 3 examples. I'm going to give you some more. Once again, they are expressions that you use to communicate a meaning that is different from the words you use. You, instead of saying you're sick, you may say you're feeling a little bit under the weather, right? There are people who, when the rain is coming, their bones will hurt. Just a second. Okay. So you say you're feeling under the weather. That actually means you're feeling sick. If you say to somebody, you're in a bad situation, you don't want to tackle a problem. You have a very pressing problem, but you don't want to deal with it right now. You might say you'll cross that bridge when you get to it, right? You'll wait you'll wait for the knife to fall in. That's a use of an idiom. Another idiom, when you get upset, you might say that somebody got all bent out of shape. How that would happen, right? Or if you have an ideal situation, if you have something you're really happy about, especially, it's like having your cake and eating it too, right? That's another idiom. Or a synonym for that idiom could be the best of both worlds. You get the best of hell and heaven, so to speak. If your patience has run out, you could say that that's the last straw. That's the last straw. That's an idiom. And the use of idioms is very important on TOEFL speaking because idioms are very specific to the country, to the language they're being used in. You're not going to, they're typically the thing that students struggle with when they translate. You'll have somebody making very clear that they are not very good at that language because they translate idioms literally, and idioms rarely ever translate literally. So Ginny, if those examples made sense to you, please let me know. I'm going to be sending you a link, and I'm going to be making it public with more idioms that everybody should make sure to check out and understand because they're so frequent. So see the chat box for the link to more English idioms. So that's pretty much it for today's class in terms of class material. If you have questions about TOEFL speaking, if you have questions about professional services, especially about professional services, I would really like you to ask because that's the best way we can help you. That's the best way we can help you. Many people use free materials. Lots of you have been using free materials. I'm convinced that some of you have actually invested in premium materials as well. I don't think you took the TOEFL between 4 and 10 times without investing. In fact, I'm going to bring up this poll. I'm curious, how much money did you spend? How much money did you spend so far on TOEFL? And what I want you to keep in mind is on materials for TOEFL, right? So don't count attempts, don't count anything but preparation. So far, everybody here is saying, oh, there's some variation. So we got 25% of you, only 25% of you who have not spent anything yet. And some of you have spent less than $200, and some of you have already spent over $200. So it's common, right? Because the TOEFL is so expensive, because it's so hard to prepare for. People do spend money on materials, but it is very important to make sure that you will be spending money on the proper materials, that you're spending money on materials that are dedicated especially to TOEFL speaking, because that's where you'll be struggling the most. And somebody asked about the relationship between Noteful and TST, and in fact, in the poll, a lot of people have been pointing out there was like 33% of you who have used Noteful materials. And you might have noticed that they are excellent. They are excellent for reading, writing, listening, but they are not well suited to TOEFL speaking, precisely because TOEFL speaking is so specific. The skills you need to master on TOEFL speaking are so specific, right? And that's where we come in. That's where Paul, our founder, started TST about 4 years ago. And he, for a long time, worked just himself one-on-one with students. And for a long time, he was not as successful at teaching TOEFL speaking as we are now, because he had to learn what works and what doesn't. And he was faced with a problem that is very common to a lot of teachers, especially teachers of TOEFL, where they teach students and their students do not get 26. And they wonder, why is this not working? And that's because there is that pyramid skills that is really important to understand. And there are very specific things about TOEFL, such as the limited preparation time, or the limited delivery time, or the emphasis that is being put on intonation, on informal speech, on speaking as you would with friends, as speaking as you would on the street. A lot of people will use academic speech instead of informal speech on TOEFL, and it's very correct, but it's very inappropriate, because in TOEFL speaking, you are actually being rated on your ability to speak as you would, as I speak to you right now, right? So that is very important to keep in mind. And the difference that a TOEFL speaking specialist makes is very big. So that's why I really urge you guys to check out our group classes. If there are any of you who are interested in group classes and want the link back up, please let me know. But at least if you don't have a very big budget, think about what your budget should be, because if you fail your next attempt, that will cost you $200, and suddenly a package of lessons isn't so expensive anymore. You're welcome, Ginny. Thanks a lot. That was a really good question, and I'm really hoping it will help you in the future. And I don't have any more questions from you guys. If there are no more questions within the next minute or so, I'm going to be shutting this class down. Some notes to those of you who are now watching the recording. We've had a special promotion up all month long. Our group classes are normally $247. And if you access the group class offer through our page, I'm going to bring that up back now, just a second. If you access from there, you'll notice that the price on group classes is $247. And for those $247, you're not just getting 8 hours of classes, which are already priced somewhere around $28 per hour or something. They are premium, but not so expensive. There are tutors out there charging way over $100. In fact, Paul has been charging consistently $100. Our founder has been charging that price consistently, but because it was so expensive, because it was so inaccessible, he worked hard to make sure that he set up our school and enough teachers to be able to carry the workload and bring the budget down, right? So now we can teach you everything you need to know about TOEFL speaking for just somewhere around $20-something an hour in the group lesson packages. But, and the reason why I started this is, for the month of August, we have been running a special promo where we offer you a 20% discount off the group class package. And in that package, you don't just get access to the lessons, which are each 1 hour long, but you also get access to our self-study course, which is normally priced at $147. That's normally $147. And you also get access to 2 response analyses, which you can use before, after, or whenever in order to evaluate your speaking score at that moment. And those are normally $27 each. So you'd be saving about $200 just by packaging the group class package. And in order to get that discount, to get another 20% off, you should use the 20% off AUG, AUG. You can see it, I believe, under the offer. You can copy paste that string of text, the 20% off AUG coupon. And that will save you about almost $50 off the cost of the group class package. And that offer will stay up. I'm going to leave that up for a few more days because the Sunday class failed so bad. And normally we would have ended that today. we would have ended that at the end of August, but I'm going to leave it up for a few more days because many of you have told me that they would like access to the replay to take full benefit of this class. So use that. And just to make sure, could you recommend some free resources for TOEFL speaking, Stephanie? Of course I can. Just give me a little bit of a second to pull those up. We have a bunch. We have a lot of free resources on our website that you can use, and I'm going to be sharing these in chat, and you can use those. And we also have, again, a lot of free resources on our YouTube channel. On our YouTube channel, Paul made available very many resources specifically for TOEFL speaking, specifically for the TOEFL speaking questions 1 through 6, and some other material on note-taking, on how you can make the jump if you are at a score of 23 or 24 to TOEFL to 26. And also, starting about a month ago, we've worked really hard at having the rest of our teachers, at having Ellen, Jamie, Katie, I believe also Kevin. Yes, they are producing pretty much weekly. They're producing content on supplementary topics. So we have material on how you can use children's language in your speech to improve your TOEFL speaking response. We have material on how to cope with anxiety. If you have already taken the TOEFL and you've experienced that stressful TOEFL situation, we can help you with that by helping you improve your mood. Because if you're anxious during the test, you can take steps to reframe your anxiousness into excitement. And instead of being down and have poor response delivery, you can have excellent response delivery, or at least much better than you normally would, right? How you can improve the speed of your delivery. So make sure you check out the channel, the YouTube channel for TOEFL Speaking Teacher, where you also have access to plenty of free resources. And finally, I would like to also share the link to the TOEFL speaking evaluation in the chat, just so that the offer for group classes can stay up. And don't hesitate to check it out. You don't have to use it. You should, in my opinion, you should definitely at least sign up for a TOEFL speaking evaluation of your speaking skill, because it will make the most difference. Even if you prepare on your own, you run the risk of running up against the skills that you are already good at. You risk practicing skills that you already are good enough to get 26 on, but neglect the skills that you find uncomfortable, neglect practices that you would not enjoy, but that are critical to you in order to increase your score. If you have 2 or 3 massive weaknesses that you're neglecting, you will definitely suffer and lose a lot of time because you do not know what they are. And that's where the TOEFL speaking evaluation comes in. What the TOEFL speaking group classes will focus on is in helping you master those supplementary skills, is in helping you master the timing, is in helping you master note takings to make the most out of those 15, 20, or 30 seconds that you have in between questions, which are normally not being used properly because it's such little time, right? You should see how well done notes look like. They're just lines and short letters and shortcuts for people to be able to make a good response within that really limited time frame. I'd also like to take a small moment to mention something I've personally noticed, which is tripping up a lot of students during their response delivery, especially for questions 3 through 6. Because for those question types, you begin to have to read passages, you have to listen to lectures, and then you will be asked a question that relates to the topic, but is really precise. You risk forgetting what you are being asked. You risk missing the topic, remembering it as a whole, but not remembering the details. And I really want to emphasize, you should pay very close attention. You should be taking notes during the lecture, during the reading passages. You should be highlighting what the topics are, just to make absolutely sure that you focus down on that specifically. Because the rest of your content, if it doesn't touch down specifically on what you are being asked for, even if your response is excellent, we've had evaluators. On our website, we have interviews with some TOEFL evaluators, with Roman Livov, with Daniel Bissett. And during those interviews, Paul has talked with them and asked them, hey, what are you rating students up or down on? And they told us, if you miss the topic, your response can be perfect, but you risk failing completely. It depends how close you are. Depends how much attention you are paying to what you're listening to, because that also counts, right? You are being asked something and you must demonstrate that you are capable of answering what you're being asked of. So that's pretty much it for now. If you guys have any more questions, I'm going to check out what you guys wrote at the beginning of this class. Feel free to say something. The chat box is now, I'm going to make the chat box public again, just to make sure that everybody can see everything that's been written. There are no more. Yeah, Zamir told us that he got 18 on speaking. To Zamir, by the way, I really recommend you send us a message or you check out our English fluency lessons, because if you're at a score of 18, you probably need to begin working on your general English fluency. Natasha asked how exactly the evaluation works. Do you need to submit the recording of your speech? So that's a really good question, because I had mentioned that we also have response analyses. The evaluation is live. After you purchase, you will receive instructions on how you can schedule an appointment with Jamie, who is currently our teacher who is doing evaluations. And you will have about 30 minutes to talk to her one-on-one. She will be giving you out the prompts that you need to answer, and you will be answering to her directly. And because it's being done right there, she will be able to tell you exactly during each little snippet what you got wrong, what you should do. In fact, we've had situations where I personally watched those recordings where I would hear a response that the student delivered during the evaluation, and it would be pretty bad. It would be crippled. It would be weak. It would have lots of interruptions. It would have lots of hesitations. It would run over the time limit. And Jamie would point those things out and say, listen, right now, focus on this, 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 and this, and do the response again. Let me hear it. And that student would deliver a flawless 26 response. We've had that happen. And that's why it's so important to have that one-on-one feedback. And I hope that answers your questions. So the evaluations are live, one-on-one with a teacher. Mimi asks, how long is the coupon valid? So I mentioned that it should have expired today, but it won't. This coupon will stay on at least until Sunday. So let me check when Sunday is, because my head is definitely in the clouds. Sunday is the 3rd of September. At least until the end of Sunday, I will be letting that coupon live, because I also want other students who will be watching the replay to make sure that they can access this offer. Amir answered, Zoom. Yes, the evaluations typically go on through Zoom. If you have any problems setting it up, but it's really easy to do, you should not have any problems. But if you have any problems, Jamie will be willing to do them through Skype, maybe even a telephone appointment. But typically, Zoom works really well. It's really good, even on poor connections, and allows you to record, which is also what will be done. Your evaluation will not just be your evaluation, it will also be recorded. You will be provided the recording with the feedback so that you can revisit that feedback, and you will be able, and you will also have your recommendations in text. So it won't be just you having to scroll back down, hey, do I remember? No, you will have the weaknesses and recommendations on how you should fix those weaknesses recorded and sent to you along with the evaluation, right? So that's pretty useful and that's pretty important. Let me see what else. Pamela, can you please tell us on intonation, language, topic development, how you sound, grammar, and vocabulary? Pamela, your answer is very, very wide. I'm not sure specifically what you're asking me on. I did talk about intonation, and I gave you an example on how intonation affects your response. About topic development, I mentioned, and you can check the replay. If you missed that portion, you will be able, I will send you the replay after this class ends and you will be able to revisit it. The topic development depends on the questions. So questions type 1 and 2 tend to present you with a topic that you talk about as if you're familiar. You don't have to be familiar with that topic. You can bring up something from imagination because you're not being judged on your life experiences, but you will have to present it as though it is familiar to you. I like that situation because I think that situation, etc. Right? For topics, for questions types 3 to 6, you will be presented with either lectures or reading passages, or you will have to listen to dialogues and then deliver your response based on those. And you will have to develop your topic so that it precisely matches the question you're being asked. And you will have to take very good notes in order to be able to do that. And remember that once you start the test, you are being hit by rapid fire. So you receive the first question, you have 30 seconds to prepare, you have 45 seconds to deliver it, you take a 15-second break, and then you receive the next question, and you have 30 seconds to prepare, and you have 45 seconds to deliver it, and you receive a 15-second break, and then you get hit with the next question. So it's really, really, really important to have specific preparation for that kind of environment, for that kind of scenario. And most people really underestimate this. They think that just having access to resources, right? You know what you should be doing, but you don't really know until you're in that situation. And that's why we created the TOEFL speaking group classes, where we will be walking you through those exact situations, which are really hard to practice otherwise. Otherwise, you need to be really disciplined. You need to keep a timer. You need to make sure, or you need to ask somebody to time you, and you need to stick precisely within those limits. You need to keep taking practice tests. You don't know how well you should be evaluating your own personal ability, so it's really, really hard. Sorry about that. So I think I answered the rest of your questions. If you have any more questions, I will be glad to answer them. I see all of you are still online, so let's make the most of it. Shoot. If any questions you have, I will do my best to answer them. If you don't have any questions, I'm just going to keep talking a little bit more about our premium resources. I mentioned that for students who have a low score, who have taken the TOEFL before, they have a low score. They have 18, for example. It's not the worst. It's not the worst. That can be worked on. We can work with that. We can definitely make you earn a much bigger score by working on the essentials. Pamela, yes, I understand your question now. I will be making the replay of this entire class available, including your questions and my answers to those questions, by email, and you'll be getting that in a few hours, right? Once this class ends, we'll be making the replay available. And the coupons will stay valid at least until Sunday. But I really recommend you don't wait, because we host our group classes in rounds. These rounds last for 1 month, and once one round starts, we cannot enroll any more students into that round. At best, we can start up new rounds, but even those fill up. So I really recommend you sign up for group classes if your TOEFL is more than a month away, as soon as possible, because the next round will be starting around September 7th, I believe. It will be starting sometime then, or as soon as we get another 8 people, and then we can start another extra round. And those rounds last for a whole month, during which you do 2 lessons per week, and you have homework and you practice with the teacher and you practice with the other students, you will gain access to a private Slack community where you can practice with the other students and talk to them and ask for advice and so on. And you also get access to the online course so you can make the most of your time. Jabel, if we cannot avoid some pauses while answering because we are still thinking about what to say, how long is the pause we should make to avoid getting a low score? By the way, I really like how you phrased that question. That's a well-phrased question. So the correct answer is as low as possible. Make your pauses as short as you can. If you can, disguise them as breaths, disguise them as you doing your throat, for example, but as short as possible. And I know it's really hard. You will struggle. Sometimes you can use intonation to cover up for moments where you would struggle. For things like, let's say, right up, you can drag on your words a little bit, but don't make them ums or right? Just drag on your words just a tiny little bit. Know that in that moment, you are already under pressure and you need to find some words that fit the topic, fit the sentence that you're delivering, fit the timing, so that you can fill that empty space and continue with your response. And we don't talk about this normally during the class. This is part of our more advanced preparatory material. But when you are lacking in content, when you are struggling against the words you need to say, and normally you would take breaks, you would take pauses, you would do sorry. There are filler words that you can use. And our teachers have also worked with you on those, on what filler words you should use to fill up the gaps between your sentences, or in case you are in advance of your time. Let's say you finished your response and there are still 10 seconds to go on the clock. Do you think you should be silent, or do you think you should be finding some words to be able to extend your response? Those are advanced strategies that are being taught as part of our special premium lessons. And they're good to at least consider, right? It's good to know that that's being taken into account. What happens if your response is too early? What happens if you've delivered part of your response, you don't have enough time for the rest of it, but you still got 5 seconds or 10 seconds on the clock? Right? That's important. And the correct answer is you should always make the most of the time you have available. You should never let empty seconds in there. Amir, could we use filling words like, by the way, exactly. Use those kinds of words. Make sure they're content appropriate, but use them. Especially make sure to use them to cover up gaps or to fill up the clock, because the clock is ticking on TOEFL and it's best to be as precise as possible. If you had a choice of how much time to take for your response, never take less than 3 seconds away from the limit, right? So if your limit is 60 seconds, never end before 57, ideally 59, because at 60, you risk being clipped. You risk maybe having a little bit of your sentence end prematurely. You never know. So try to stay somewhere between 1 and 3 seconds away from the time limit. But remember that once the beep hits, once the time ends, you're done. Your response is done. And if your response is not completed, that's is counting against your score. So Hype, does cramming templates of answers help? No, it doesn't. No, it does not. What helps is to understand what kind of idioms you can use, because those are good fillers, by the way. Idioms are an excellent way to fill up your responses. If you have a good collection of idioms in your vocabulary and you're familiar with using it spontaneously, you will be able to maybe fill in 5 to 10 seconds just by using the correct idiom. And in so doing, you show that you understand how that idiom is being used. You understand natural English. But don't use templates, because templates sound robotic, 1. And 2, templates don't fit the context. you may notice a little bit that I'm speaking to you a bit differently now than I was during that presentation. And that's because right now I'm actually speaking to you. During the presentation, I recorded the material. I tried to be as animate as possible, but I wasn't live. I wasn't there, right? It was in some ways it was a template, but in that case, I considered that it was necessary just to make sure that I communicated that information as best as I could to you and without interruptions. So I hope you like that. If you did like that, make sure to say so in the chat. If you think I could have done something better, tell me that as well. Let's see if we have any other questions so far. No more questions. Guys, don't forget, I really hope you checked out the speaking evaluation at least. Ideally, I definitely recommend you to check out the group classes and that you sign up for them. If you check the internet for how much premium tutoring costs for TOEFL speaking specifically, you'll start to see prices way in advance of $60 per hour. And our teachers also charge $60 per hour if you need to take one-on-one classes. That's the price. General English teachers tend to, if they're native, they may teach you at 15, 20, 25, 30. If they're focused specifically on test prep, they may teach you at 35, 40, but you don't know they are specifically focused on TOEFL speaking. And well, I think most of you are here specifically for TOEFL speaking. And what we've tried to do to make that price much more accessible is hosted in the format of group classes, which have the advantage of you being able to interact with the other students and see how their responses suffer. You may be able to see the mistakes that they're not seeing because we can't see our own mistakes. We are flawed like that, but you can see other people's mistakes and that can help you see yours, and they will be able to see yours and provide advice. Not just the teacher's advice, you can talk among each other, which is really, really valuable. Not to mention they are far more accessible. So I really hope you check those out. And come to think of that, I'm gonna need to double check the offer again just to make sure that it's shown. So I don't see any more questions from you guys. I hope this class has helped you. I really hope so. If it did help you, if you feel like you learned something valuable today, my only request is that you take some kind of action on it. So if you can't invest, go to the YouTube channel, check out the materials that we make available there, and commit to having a preparation schedule that you do daily, you carry it out daily, and that you commit to investing at least time into that material. If you can, if your budget allows you, do not neglect how expensive the TOEFL is, how long it takes to master, and how important it is to at least invest what you would in one TOEFL attempt. Because basically, a group class package will cost you pretty much the same as one single TOEFL attempt. And recall how many of you have already taken the TOEFL more than one time. That's how expensive the TOEFL is, and that's why it's important to consider investing in premium resources. So, Pamela, can you send us a mail on what was spoken in today's class? I'll be honest, I will not cover in text the content of today's class. I believe it's much better for it to be taught organically in speech with supported material. And we do have a lot of that material in our channel on YouTube. And we also have a lot of that material on our website in our free resources. But the entire class, all of it will be sent to you by email, and you will be able to watch it all whenever you want. I'm not sure how long we will leave it online, but you will definitely be able to view it and have access. All right. And yes, that's for the people who missed the class, and that's very much my fault. We could not manage to get everything technical under control to have the class on Sunday, and I'm really sorry about that. And it's also why we are extending the special August offer on group classes. So if you're seeing this class in a replay, same applies to you. Check out the group classes. Make sure you think really, really hard about what you're willing to set aside in terms of budget for TOEFL speaking, because your attempts count against that budget as well. So if you're going to take the TOEFL 3 times, that's almost $600 down the drain, way more than probably what would have been needed to prepare with premium materials and get the score you need, right? I hope that makes sense to you guys. It definitely made sense to me. When I joined TOEFL Speaking Teacher, I was quite skeptical myself. I felt that people should be able, right? You get that feeling that people should be able to manage on their own, that they should be able to teach themselves, to study by themselves, and get what they need, right? But it's not like that. It's not always like that. One good example for that is driving. If you have a driver's license, you know that you need to practice with an instructor. You need to take some theoretical classes on it. You need to invest in that. And that's why people no longer, it used to be people would be like, I really want to start driving a car, but I don't want to learn how to drive because it's so expensive. But then people noticed that there are skills that you can only master with an instructor. And that's a really good example. You would not expect to have a driver's license for free. But for many people, it's really hard to translate that mindset and understand that this applies to other things as well, to certifications, right? Would you expect to get your Cambridge for free, right? I think some of you may have your Cambridge, but it's pretty common that people want and expect to be able to master these kinds of skills on their own, but it doesn't really work, mostly because they haven't been in that situation. Those of you who have taken the TOEFL at least once know how stressful it is, how the exam environment feels, how much pressure you get from the timing restrictions. And that's something that we don't really find good ways to communicate to students otherwise, except by preparing them with premium material. Pamela, can you tell your TOEFL, your YouTube channel and resources? So the YouTube channel, if you search it, is called TOEFL Speaking Teacher. I shared the link in the chat. I'm going to share it again. I'm going to post it as part of a, let me see. Yeah, in the chat box. I'm going to replace the existing sticky with the YouTube channel link so that you guys have access to it. Definitely check it out. There's a lot of valuable material there. It's really useful. I don't know why this is not working though. Yeah, so I don't think you guys are seeing the sticky for that. I'm just gonna share it in the chat box again. I'm sorry about that. But I will make sure to include the link to the YouTube channel and to the website in the mail that will contain the class replay. So it's getting pretty late actually. How long has this class been running for? I think we're coming up against almost 2 hours of class time. So if you guys have any more questions, don't hesitate to ask. I will try to stay on for a little bit longer, but we will be closing this up soon. We're running against an hour and 40 minutes, and I'm sure that many of you have either to go to sleep, go to work, or go party with some friends. And I don't want to hold you back from that. So guys, if you have any more questions, let's take another minute. And if there are no more questions from you guys, just remember, please check out our YouTube channel. Please check out our speaking evaluation. This is pretty much the best advice I can give you for TOEFL speaking. This class, I hope, has communicated how important it is to understand the specific skills that you need on TOEFL and how much of an impact they make on your response. But there is a limit to how much you can improve without understanding what your weaknesses are, without understanding if your accent is too strong, without understanding if your intonation is not good enough, without understanding, especially if you have wasted months because of weaknesses that were easily fixable. If you have weaknesses that are easily fixable, you risk not knowing what those are without somebody who is really experienced with TOEFL evaluating you and telling you. Like the example, I wish I could have made that. I should have made that. For next class, if I'm going to be hosting a next class, I promise it will contain that example. I will definitely have the recording of the student who took an evaluation and gave a response to Jamie, and it was a really weak response. And then just during the class, you can notice the improvement just through a few easy, simple suggestions, how much more of an improvement she got. And I'm sure we have her testimonial because she definitely got 26 afterwards. How important it is to have your response delivery evaluated live, have immediate feedback, actionable recommendations afterwards, to be able to come back and reference it when you need, and just using that feedback, if you want, prepare on your own, but prepare what you actually have to focus on. That's most important. So guys, I see there are no more questions. Let me see if any offer is still up. The group class offer is still up. I hope you guys choose to work with us. If you do not, I hope you guys get TOEFL Speaking 26 as soon as you can. I hope you guys study with the right materials, or at least take some advice from this. Use the lessons, the tips we provided in this class, and practice, and commit to practicing. And just tell us if you were helped, if you get your score next time, if you have any suggestions, just reach out, visit our site, tell us in our chat box or on Facebook or by email. My email is vlad@TOEFLSpeakingTeacher.com. That's more easily read than pronounced, I guess. Just tell us and we will be very happy to hear from you. I see there are no more questions. So that will be pretty much it for today. And thank you a lot for participating in this class. I know it was not easy, especially during a weekday. For many of you, this might be a very early or a very late hour. And I hope for those of you who are watching this replay, sorry we couldn't make Sundays. I hope this material is really helpful for you. And I hope to hear back from you by email, or I hope that you'll meet with Jamie for an evaluation or sign up for a package of group classes at least. And that's pretty much it. There are no more questions. So I'm going to say bye-bye. Have a very nice day. And thanks for joining. Good luck on your TOEFL.